podcast. Jordan, how you doing, man?
I'm I'm doing incredibly okay. Yeah, yeah. How about you, bro?
Good, man. Just got back from Hawaii, feeling good. I'm glad to be
Poor
back at
thing.
it, though. I know,
So
so nice.
brave, so
Oh,
brave to come back.
it was like the nicest weather we've had too, you know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, it was a breath of fresh air, but I missed not talking about this kind of stuff.
yeah,
You
man.
know, so I'm glad to get
Absolutely.
back in it. So today's topic is love. Love, what it means, why Jordan and I feel like it's probably one of the most important things, not probably, like the most important
Yeah,
thing we could be talking about.
absolutely.
So I'm going to post a link to this talk right now, and we will dive into it. So Jordan, thought we'd start, man, with love. We sing about it, we write about it.
Yeah,
It's an every dang rom-com.
yeah, yeah,
We do a horrible job at really talking about what it is.
yeah.
So if you looked at our culture and the way we define love now, what do you think the the definition would be if I just went and talked to 10 people on the street?
Just the objective like consensus of what love is.
Yeah.
Well, I don't, I don't, I don't think it would. I don't think it would be honest at all. I almost, not to sound arrogant, but I almost know that I know they wouldn't be honest about what they think that it is, because it's treated as it's treated in exact, and I've talked about this before, but as a commodity. And they say love is the thing that you fall into and you want to drown in when you find a specific relationship with another human being, and the feeling you get when you start to connect with that person, it starts to make sense, because most of life doesn't make sense. And when you start to establish and start to kindle that fire, everyone references that feeling growing as love. And if you have the courage to dissect what that feeling is, what that fire is that we all sing about, and have the that very like namaste zened out, like this is the state of being truly human, it's actually the truest state of selfishness, because you're not falling in love with that person. You're falling in love with the energy you're feeling, with how much that this person is falling in love with you. So you love that they love you. And I'm obviously I'm speaking objectively, but I'm only saying this because I know my nature. I know myself. I've lived my life. I've lived my starvation self, metaphorically and physically, for love. I've been starving for love. So I know what it means to desire this thing. I also know what it means to start the kindling of that fire. And when I peel back the curtains and I'm honest and I look in the mirror, I'm like, I love it when someone else is loving me, because I don't know how to do that. And when someone else is either I have fooled them into loving me, because if they knew me, they wouldn't love me. But if I have the beautiful moment of feeling like someone is liking me, I love that. It's a dopamine hit, man. That's what it is. There's this neurological firing of, we call it love, but it's actually, I love to feel like I matter. I love to feel like I have value to someone else. So we say this LOVE thing is this simple, fluffy hallmark moment that we want to try to create, because most of life is loveless. Most of life is lacking love. But what we're saying is, it's not that there's not love in my life. Life doesn't make sense. It's because we don't know how to create value within ourselves. So we feel like it is something, it is a commodity, is it an external thing I have to go seek. I have to go take from other people. And therein lies the imploding, spiraling, that tidal wave, cascading, abominable, endless roller coaster of love. And that's why you fall out of love, because people stop loving you when you stop giving them the thing that you wanted initially. So love is not, oh, this thing I'm creating with this person. It's a thing that is very conditionally based. And as soon as you stop loving me, I'm going to stop loving you back. So is love a thing that is to be given on conditions, Or is it this hippie shit? Is it this thing that I'm supposed to create within myself, and it just give freely without condition? So if those 10 people were to be interviewed by me, I think the general consensus would be, it's when I find another human, and I feel things that are lovely, and I want to feel those lovely things more.
Yep.
And I'm addicted to them. So I'm gonna promise that person I'll never leave them as long as they keep giving me those things. And until death do us part, I'm gonna love you until you stop loving me. Then I'm out.
Man. Well, I think that ties into, dude, where I feel like if you went and talked to somebody on the street, you know, well, it's almost like a dictionary definition of love, right? It's love is a feeling of deep affection towards somebody, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's this feeling of like really liking something, you know, like, oh, I love to go to the movies on Saturdays and eat popcorn.
Yeah.
You know, and it's directional towards something, like there's an object to which you're loving.
Yeah.
So I think more of like, if we're talking about love in the sense, it is a really superficial state of what it is, where
Brutally.
I think what you're talking about is right on, where it is all based on this trade-off.
100%.
Where I was gonna try to find it, maybe I'll find it in a second, but there, you know, when you look at the different levels of love, when you see that, like, first level is like baby love,
Yep.
second level is like a horse trading love. That's where I think we stop.
Oh, always.
Where if you were to go talk to people, that's what love is, right? It's that I love this because of how it makes me feel, right?
Yeah.
It's all based on this thing provoking something in yourself.
Yeah.
And whatever, you know, that makes you feel alive, that makes you feel purpose, that's what love is. And when in reality, I don't necessarily think that's how it works.
Yeah.
I think, you know, when we get into really what love is, it's something that comes from the inside out, not something that outside provokes. Like, you know, you may be infatuated with somebody where like, I just love how I feel when I'm around her, man.
Yeah.
She makes me feel whole. She makes me feel alive. She makes me feel all these things. That's why we go so crazy, right?
Yeah.
You go mad drunk in love, because that's what love does when you're in this state. It's something that you want so badly that you don't have, that other things around you on the outside provoke that feeling of bliss where you're like, oh man, this is it. This is it. I want this. How do I have this 24/7? So when I look at the state of why we sing about it and all these things, because that's we're all talking about this state that we want to have. But the belief is it's based on whatever product that we feel like is going to satisfy, when it doesn't. I don't feel like that's how it works. You're never going to get to that state, because like I love my wife, but if I was based on my relationship with her was all based on how she made me feel, that's kind of a scary place to be. Because what if I start feeling like she doesn't make me feel that anymore? Does that just mean time to move on? Right? I mean, that seems like a really shallow acceptance of love. So I think the point of where we want to get to is, how do we really find out what this is? Because it is such an important thing to understand. It's this important part of our humanity where, you know, in some of my studies with love, I've looked at it as like, it's kind of our first step towards finding wholeness and trying to understand like how we find peace and joy. It comes from this longing deep down of like, I don't know what this love thing is, but I really want to find out.
It's like love is like one of the key puzzle pieces that's going to fix the brokenness of your soul. And you're saying like love is that significant kind of anchored puzzle piece before you even start to put the wholeness back together that's always been broken. It's how do I go seek this commodity out there that's going to actually fulfill that puzzle piece, because of our subjective uniqueness as humans. Not everyone has the same puzzle piece that they need. So I need to find that other puzzle piece out there, and there's amongst billions of other puzzle pieces, and I need to find them so they can fit and make me feel better about me.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that puzzle piece already there, and how do I create it in there? And the fact that I'm trying to seek to find it externally is the problem in and of itself, because it won't be found.
Yeah.
So that's what you're saying essentially.
Yeah, basically. Oh, here, I found the love types.
Fuck yes.
No, I'll just
Do
read it. I think it's helpful. So like baby love. Love is basically this conditional on what they want, demand, right? It's a baby crying, oh, give me food or whatever it is. Or a horse trading love, you trade for it, right? It's kind of like, I do this for you, you love me, you do this for me, I love you. It's like it's something I give you.
Yep.
Like, good boy, Jordan, you showed up today. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here. I'm going to show you that I love you now. If you weren't here today, fuck you.
Yeah,
You know,
mostly that.
That's how it goes. And then there's this state where it's like real love. You give it because of who you are, and to withhold it causes you pain. Right. That is a state of like
Interesting.
being in touch with true love. Then there's the upper echelon of love where it's like you love those that can hurt you. You want people to escape the pain. You're so spiritually connected that you see yourself in them, and to the place where like you can't help but love. It's you're acting out of a state of who you are. So to get back to where I want to start this is right now, why are we trapped in this idea of horse trading love? Like, well, why do you think that, you know, so many of these romantic comedy movies make so much money and they keep making them, and shows like The Bachelor just keep going on and on where women or whoever dive into them, and they just like, it's just this belief on like, oh, this is what love is. Like, how come there isn't more conversations going on? Maybe there are in churches or other places, but like most of it is like you go to work, right? And it's like people don't care, you know? Love is just this shallow thing that they've accepted as being this, I don't know, this thing I trade for, right? Like love is something my wife needs to do for me because I do that for her. But like where is the pursuit of really going for this thing, and why don't we see the need to really figure out what it is if we all talk about how important it is? You know, the Beatles sing all you need is love, right? There's so many ways we talk about love, but we don't do anything. We've accepted this really, you know, Oxford Dictionary definition of it, and we're okay with it. Why? Why?
Well, not to run away from the answer that I have, but I think you should keep going with that thought. I think you're building up to something, and I don't want to cut you off because I think you hit on multiple points, multiple different types of scenarios with where you can exchange and offer love with the hope and expectation that it's reciprocated. So there's always a ping-ponging expectation of love. You hit it, and like that ping pong ball better fucking come back. And it's this game we play with each other. So like keep going with it. Based off of those the hierarchy of love that you spelled out with there, what's the antidote where you're at? I mean, like, not to just pinball it back to you, but I want to hear more thoughts because I like where you're going with it.
Well, so I think that a big part of why we've settled on love is fear and selfishness.
But doesn't that make sense though? I mean, everything in life having the contrast. So it's like if you, and I don't always try to be the pessimist or the negative person, but it's like there's always two sides to something.
Yeah.
So for me, my mind, not just because it was birthed in darkness and it's there most of the time, when I look at love, I don't look at love to define love. I look at what is the opposite. So it's just ironic, not to cut you off, but it's I think that's where the answers are. I think if we want to understand the thing, we always have to look at the contrast. So that's why we don't know what love is, because we don't have the courage to say, what is the opposite? How do I explore the unknown territory of the darkness within lovelessness? Because to understand love, you have to understand what lovelessness is. I understand that. I didn't ask to understand it, but I have an experience-based understanding of lovelessness on a very deep fucking level. So that's why I have an infinite pursuit and a desire to understand love. So again, not to cut you off, but what is it in that contrast, that darkness? So where are you going with it? It's so important that people hear that.
Well,
that fear.
But the fear is it, man. I think the highway is the perfect the mental picture of where we're at, and that's a big part of why we don't love. We're in our own isolated little boxes, constantly. You know, and it's easy to look at that other person in the other box is not you, separate from you, and you could look at them and be like, man, that dude's such a shitty driver. See how slow he's driving in the right-hand lane? Right? Or how come this asshole won't get out of the left-hand lane? He doesn't know the left-hand lane is just for passing? Or like, look at that dude cutting people off left and right like he's in a business, like he's in a hurry for some reason. It's easy when we have this mindset, kind of like where we're at. We're on self little bubbles everywhere we go, right? And to let someone into that bubble is terrifying. It's terrifying because it's opening yourself up to a way where love is it's extremely dangerous because if you're scared of pain, you're going to avoid it. Right? You are, because you don't want someone, you're not going to let someone in where they can hurt you when you could just stay in your own little box. No one's going to hurt me in my car. I got my airbags, man. Someone tries to, they're going to go off on me fine. Right? To love and to be that is to realize we're all on the freeway. Like, that person next to me is part of it too. They're part of me. They're part of, like, it's not the perfect metaphor, but the point is,
No, I see where you're going.
I feel like the obstacle to it is this idea of self. This idea of self, that is me in my car. What matters is me getting into my destination. Screw everyone else, right? And no one's going to influence me in my box, right? Because I'm not going to seek to understand why that person's driving that way. You know, I'm not going to accept the fact that they're doing it. Like, there could be no reason in my little box mind of why they can drive like that. But in reality, if we want to be more of in a loving state and like get into that place, it's learning to understand, learning to accept, learning to see that we are all on the freeway, that those boxes that we're driving in are really not, there is no separation. We put ourselves in these things thinking there is, but there isn't. And I feel like that's the part of where the walls start to fall down, where you can actually learn to experience love in a way where it's like you see the interconnectedness of people around you instead of your own little self. Because I feel like when you're talking about two different sides, it's the selfishness, and there's love. Because love at its core is connection, acceptance, and understanding in a way where it helps break down the walls.
Well, it's that final tier of love. I think it's really beautiful how you're connecting it. Is like, it's not a coincidence that fully enlightened love manifesting in real time, it looks like that last tier where it's like you see people for who they are, and you see the darkness in them, and you can't not, because of the fact that you don't need anything from them. You're no longer horse trading love. You know what love is, and you've created it within yourself, that you have the capacity to recognize the lovelessness in someone else. And you know that they're that way because they don't know how to love themselves. And you know that they're that way because they have been hurt too many times.
Yeah.
And that negative energy that they're exuding is a byproduct of their a defense mechanism, because they're basically saying, I want to be loved more than anything, but I'm fucking terrified. And the only way to make sure I don't get hurt is to make you feel like I'm a dick so you don't come close to me. It's the ultimate like defense mechanism. Yeah. But what that last tier of love does is it ignites and creates more of what it already is, because it's not a vacuum. It is like space. It is the presence of, it's like the essence of God in like our little like astronaut space. And like that's a lot of why the symbolism of the lactose intolerant astronaut is venturing into space, because there's that metaphor of where is the boundary of love? Is it infinitely growing? Is there a vacuum side of it? And I think true love is self-created. It's not self-preserving. It's not selfish. It is simply being a conduit of the thing that you have an overflow of. So when you see the thing that people are scared to have, you go and give it anyway, because you know you're probably not going to get it in return, but you know they secretly, but not so secretly, need it, and they're dying because of not having that sustenance. So you're basically like a sole personal chef, and you see the starvingness and all of the negative energy people have, and you're like, that's okay. Let me cook you up something real quick. I know I got the groceries and I'm in my soul, and I know how to whip something up for you real quick. And that's where we're starving for it. And to the degree that you're starving for that commodity, you're going to see negative reactions. It's the igniter of all school shootings. It's the igniter of needing to go get all the aesthetic surgeries. It's everything toxic happening is a byproduct of not knowing that you are perfect the way you are, and you don't need to go prove that to anyone. So it's just interesting that that's how you articulated it, because it matches exactly that last tier of love.
Well, and I think to kind of sum it up with what you're talking about, so the initial question of what people see as love today, and I think people see it as like this horse trading level of like something I need to trade in order to have somebody provoke a feeling in me. But I think that it stems down to why I feel like why people avoid it is that inner unacceptance of their situation, of themselves, and that is the barrier of why we don't go any deeper. I think it's a part of like what you're talking about, like why you can go get plastic surgery to feel better about yourself, why you have to go work out at the gym so that you have this image that you can finally accept, or you have to go get this degree to where you can finally be satisfied. It's all based on this idea of like, I need to be something in order to be able to love myself, because I can't do that as I am. And that's a scary, 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 scary thing, because if you can't love yourself as you are, then you're never going to. You're stuck in a lie cycle. And it's this idea of like, I will be enough when.
Yeah.
I will be enough when.
Yeah.
I will be enough when.
Yeah.
And with love, and I feel like it hits on this idea of like, love starts with you. Love starts with you, and learning to love yourself, or in other words, to accept yourself in a degree where I don't need anything or anybody in order to make me love me. And love in the sense of accepting myself, of seeking to understand the way I am, and that being okay. And the fact that like, you may not be perfect. You may have anger problems, you may be an addict, you may be all these different things. But unless you can accept yourself as you are right now, and learn to understand it and accept it, like, it builds from that. It will like, you won't ever find something. You won't, like, even I've been to enough groups and, addict support things to understand that like, a big part of it is just learning to love yourself as you are now, and learning to be gentle and understand yourself, because that's where love stems from. It's like creating this little space in yourself where you can like be like, all right, I understand why I am the way I am. I understand why I do these things that have made me feel so bad. And that's where the love little fire starts going a little bit more. And then once that starts going, that's what brings you the healing. That's what brings you the freedom. Because it's being stuck in that cycle of like, oh, once I look like this, man, then I can accept and love myself. Because if we're down that road, if we're constantly buying these lies that are around us everywhere, then we're lost. We're just miserable people in a broke ass world that is just gonna continually get worse, because unless we could call it out for what it is, and help awaken people to this idea of like, these world of lies that we're in, that we're buying them, and we're believing them, and we're dedicating our lives to it. Like, we're just going down this track of just being miserable all the time, and just being broken. And it's just like, dude, I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for my family. I don't want that for anyone in my bubble. Let alone, like, I don't want to see a world when we go outside of this garage that's like that. We're so not together. We're so individualistic that it's just, we're never going to fix our problems that way. We're just going to get worse and worse and worse. And that's why I think part of figuring out and talking about it is just saying like, man, why is it so hard for people to talk to each other anymore? Because we don't do that. We just look at our phones or something, right? But we don't see a need to like, hey man, like, I should probably start talking to some more people just so I can, be nice. And like, show another human some compassion, because isn't that part of being human?
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. It's more of, how do we figure out, and I think this kind of goes into phase 2 of our conversation of like, what are these obstacles? And we've talked about them a little bit, holding us back, holding us from getting to a place where we can connect the people around us, not just our friends and our family, but our neighbors, the people in the grocery store, doing these things that show that help other humans, that help us get to a better state. And I think like, there's so many different things. So I want to talk about that, like what, and I feel like talking about the obstacles, and then we'll really iron out why we believe love is so important. But what do you think with all these different things around us? Like, what are some of the obstacles besides what we've already talked about that are holding us back?
Yeah. Well, I think by default of establishing like, love is something that has to be created within, the only obstacle I have is myself. and loving myself and understanding what the fuck that means and how to be an igniter of that self-love and acceptance. And you've established that the opposite of love is fear. So basically you have to diagnose what are you so fucking afraid of within yourself, and why have you allowed those fears that are lies become true to the extent that you have suffocated and stifled who you think you need to be in order to be worth that commodity of horse trading love. And I know that I don't know so much about love because I have barely begun to dabble in self-love. I have traded every horse inside of my soul. I've been so many things that I have felt so many people wanted me to be for them in order to earn that love. And I was good. I was trading like some like straight up Persian purebred horses. I knew how to be exactly what people wanted me to be. And I got plenty of synthetic love. But the problem with that is after you do that trade, you realize like the whole thing was a facade. There's no truth. So how do you find self-love if you are addicted to this perpetual synthetic reality? It is an impossibility. So you have to get at the heart of the fact that you're fucking terrified of who you are.
Yeah.
So how the fuck do you even get to know who you are? And I can't speak for anyone else, but I know I have an incredible amount of fear still at this very moment is inside of me of exposing who I am, and that's largely why I'm here. That's largely why I accepted the request of doing this with you is because I'm at a point in my life where I've exhausted all options of manifesting love within myself, manifesting truth and meaning and purpose. And I am at a point where I'm like, I need to just be in environments where I can take risks to own who I truly am and deal with the ramifications of whatever that is. And I believe the ramifications of doing that will eventually be self-love. Because if I continue to be myself, who I am truly, fearlessly, at some point, if I sustain that, I think that's what self-love is to be truly who you are and accept it. So with that said, I've been thinking a lot about Martin Luther King Jr. this week because of last Monday, and one of the quotes I read this week, and I've rewatched a bunch of his black and white speeches, and one of the quotes that really hits me and I think coincides with our conversation is it says, "Darkness can never drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate can never drive out hate. Only love can do that." And you establish the spectrums of what love could be hypothetically. Well, we have to understand what the opposite is. That's fear. So I was going to write something last night, and after listening to one of Martin Luther King's speeches, I realized that the reason I'm about to sit and write something about love is because I'm fucking terrified of sitting here with you right now and organically actually just expressing myself and owning it. And for me to sit last night and try to construct some word letter combinations that were more aesthetically polished would be better to offer. But I'm like, that's what's so ironic. I'm like, if I loved myself, I would be who I am and express that in the moment. I don't need to fucking rehearse what I think. I don't need to think about love and write it down to make it look pretty and then express it while the whole time I'm standing behind that Wizard of Oz curtain and just terrified that you'll actually see who I am. So I'm gonna do something. As you know, I'm a avid addict of hip hop culture and love it, or what used to be hip hop culture back in the day. And Tupac's one of my biggest heroes, and I have idolized like hip hop artists' capacity to like rap battle and have like that freestyle flow of basically berating each other and tearing each other apart, but the ability to just without rehearsing anything just fluidly speak something that's intense, like that's something I've idolized my whole life. And I'm going to in real time just express myself, and I'm literally going to unplug this and put these on and I'm gonna take my hat off because I hide behind my hat, and I'm gonna try to be as honest as I can about what I think love is, because in order to even have to be a reputable source of love, I have to actually walk that, and I want to attempt to express myself fearlessly, and it's gonna be brutally uncomfortable, but
Hell
I
yeah.
think it's fucking important. So, without further ado,
Let's do it.
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I don't know. All right. Man. Man, oh man. Man, no 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 man knows how to be a man. Can I get an amen from a man? I've never met a man who knows how to be a man. So how can I become a man if there isn't a man who knows how to be a man? I'm too exhausted. I'm too fucking exhausted of being too fucking exhausted. I don't have any more fucks to give because I barely know how to live. Because I've been so sick of giving a fuck about what people seem to give such a fuck about. I'm so sick of giving a fuck about what people seem to give such a fuck about. I'm so sick of giving a fuck about what people seem to give such a fuck about. I'm so sick of giving a fuck about what people seem to give such a fuck about. I have no fucks left to give. I hold my daughter at night before I put her to bed. I rock her and her ears pressed to my chest, and I'm always fucking terrified that she won't feel the heartbeat that isn't there. And before her ear hits my chest to hear the nothingness, I start to sing her a lullaby. I sing the same song every night. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why, oh why can't I? I don't know if I'll ever find what's on the other side of the rainbow, because this bird's wings have always been clipped. But I do know, regardless of whether or not I fly, until the day I die, I'm gonna be fighting ferociously to find that map to that hidden treasure that's buried in all of our souls. That treasure that's at the end of that rainbow that I don't know how to get over. I'm gonna find out how to get there for her. To know how to love oneself is the moment that your purpose and your meaning is conceived. I birthed her soul into existence And until the day I die, I will find a way to birth the path of meaning for her. But I know that I know that I know I'll never know until I know how to love myself. I know that I don't know how to receive love. It's fucking terrifying. But I know that that's okay. Because the man who was supposed to show this man how to be a man took that from me when I was a boy. So when I look at that broken boy inside of me, this man looks at that boy and says, it's okay. It's okay. If you never know how to receive love, it's okay. But it's not okay to give up. My daughter didn't ask to be brought into the world. There's so much fucking chaos. But I know that I know I will find that treasure map. I don't know how to receive love, but I know how to fucking give it. Love is a choice. It's a choice. I can always choose to be patient. I can always choose to be kind. I can always choose to not be self-seeking. And that's a fucking muscle you can flex. I know how to build muscle. And there's a part of my soul that will probably be atrophied till the day I die in my capacity to flex the muscle to receive love. But I know how to fucking give it. And if that's the only thing I know how to do with love, that's okay. That's okay. I read a book once that said God is love. And I realized I don't know who God is because I don't know what love is. Soon after reading that, I met a girl, and I could tell she didn't know how to love herself. And she was terrified of love. She was a ghost. She was a hollow shell. And the only way I can see that hollow shell is because I have a sixth sense. I can see dead people walking. I saw the death in her. And I spoke to her. And I poured out my love to her. The next day she came to me and gave me a letter. And the letter said, I was going to commit suicide. But because of the love that you gave me last night, it made me want to wake up and keep trying. That moment saved my life because it showed me the physical cancer in my body is not the cancer that I was dealing with at the time. The real cancer in my body was the cancer that I didn't know how to love. I didn't know who God was because I didn't know what love was. But the real fucking cancer is just because I don't know how to receive it doesn't mean I can't give it. The real cancer in all of us is we don't know what love is because we don't know how to create it within ourselves, and we think it's something we have to go earn. Life is a fucking circus seeking to find purpose, and all we do is juggle for each other. We juggle each other's expectations of what we think others think we should be. We need to take off those masks. We need to stop juggling. And we need to learn how to create love within. The only way to do that is to get naked and fearlessly express who you are. So here I am, the loveless man, not knowing how to receive love. But until the day I die, I'm going to continue to try to give it. And I hope one day my daughter will get to the other side of that rainbow. And maybe she can come back and tell me how to get there. So, yeah.
Jordan, dude, thank you. And I hope for all those watching and that are listening can appreciate the vulnerability, dude. It's so awesome to get to do this kind of thing with you.
Well, I'm glad it's for one of us.
Well, to put yourself out there and just to do something like that, something that hopefully just speaks volumes, dude. And I mean, that's why I love doing this with you. And I really do mean that. You put your heart out there. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And I think that's just so captivating. You know what I mean? And what you had to say it's awesome. There's so much to dive into, but I don't want the vulnerability part of what you just did to not get seen. That's where I want to shine the light on the fact that, like, a part of love, a part of trying to love yourself is to be vulnerable, is to be vulnerable with yourself.
Yeah, and that's the. I appreciate you saying all that. It means a lot, but the subliminal message I was wanting to say is, I wasn't wanting to say anything about love. I was wanting to show people what love is, and it begins with actually accepting and acknowledging, and whether it's verbally or whether it's articulating in a journal, it's doing the thing that is always the representation of whether or not you love something. You give time to it. It's the one commodity we don't get more of. And there's so much fucking noise in our lives that the reason we don't know how to go about even learning to love ourselves is because we tell ourselves we don't have time, and we don't know how to turn down the volume of our life. Mm-hmm. And it's actually brutally simple. You take time with yourself in the same way I'm taking time to get to fall more in love with you as a friend, as a human being. I'm giving you my time and engaging with you. You do that with yourself. You got to get to know yourself. And you'll never know how to love yourself until you know yourself. So basically I was wanting to show, like, in an unrehearsed, like, I had no idea what I was even going to say. You know, I knew I wanted to establish I don't know what the fuck it is. and whatever came out was going to come out. And that's me verbally and mostly non-verbally expressing, like, that's how love ignites. You get in an environment with a friend, someone you trust, and you start to, like, whisper, like, this is who I am. Do you think this is worth being loved? But until you put yourself in that environment, you'll never know. Yeah. Because you'll always answer it for yourself when you're alone. In the busyness of life, you'll be like, fuck no, you're not worth being loved. So shut the fuck up and go back to what you think everyone else wants you to be.
Sure.
So I'm too tired to keep doing it, man. I know that the love I've tried to earn has always bankrupted me. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking for a long-term investment that will never fade. And it's beautiful how you always get the return on your investment if you put yourself in a position to extend compassion and patience to yourself. And basically what I'm doing is, I said in a very intimate way, this is who I am, this is where I'm at my life. And the take-home message that I tell myself every day, and the reason why I can grow, in spite of all the dark shit I hold on to, is I tell myself, it's okay. That's where you're at. It's okay. And it's not okay to be a victim of any of that shit, but it's okay to be where you're at because of where you've come from. But let's figure out how to move forward today. That's what love is. It's a continual encouragement to move forward into more space of what love is, and that's acceptance. So,
But I think that's important for people to hear, man. It's just, I feel like you're a dude I know pretty well, where
yeah,
I feel like from how I know you, it's easy to love you because I think you're an awesome dude. You're easy person to love compared to people where, let's say, they're stuck in something where it's hard to love, right? You know, they feel marginalized or they feel disgusting or something like that. That's a hard place to get to where you're talking about.
yeah,
Where if other people look at you like, oh, you're gross or you're different, I don't like you, you know, like a lot of the kids that get bullied in school for whatever reason they're different. It's a hard thing to do, to accept that about yourself and work from there.
yeah,
Because if you feel that you're not worth that, like if you can't begin there, then it's just you're not going to. And the reason I say it's like, imagine, I feel like you're a dude that is just like got some profound stuff to say, well-rounded, you know, and someone easy to love. And I mean, like, talking to the people that may have a really hard road to try to love themselves. That's the hard part, where they have to learn to do exactly what you just said, to learn to, how do I accept where I'm at enough where, like, I can look in my past where I could say, okay, this has helped make me to where I'm at, where I can accept it and work from there, not go forward trying to find acceptance, but beginning with acceptance and moving forward. And that's a tough thing to do if you can't accept yourself for whatever reason. And that's what I always think is, like, you got to go look at that reason. You got to really not be afraid and try to, like, honestly check it out. Because I could say from self-experience, you know, there was things I really hated about myself. And those are what are in the spotlight. How can you love yourself when there's so many things that you do or you believe it's a part of who you are that you can't accept? You won't. You won't. And you could only do that by putting on the lens of understanding. And that's a hard lens to put on, especially when there's something that you're trying so hard not to do anymore, or there's something that you just don't like about yourself that you're trying to get rid of. It's like, oh, I'm trying to go to the gym to build self-confidence or whatever, right? You're trying to gain it through whatever method. But the point being is, why aren't you self-confident as you are? It's a tough thing to do, because that's a part of why love is so darn hard. It's hard because you have to be so understanding. And in a world where everyone around you may just preach the gospel of, you're not enough, dude. And you buy that hook, line, and sinker. And the point being is, like, that lens of understanding is something that is so key to sparking that thing in yourself. Where you could go on a podcast and just speak your heart as vulnerably as you did, because you're at a place where you're just like, you're understanding where you're at. You're accepting of where you're at, to the point where you could be vulnerable and put yourself out there. And hopefully people can see that that's exactly what's going on. Like, this is a part of what loving yourself looks like. It's learning to understand and accept the person sitting in the chair and the person staring at you in the mirror. And it's a really hard thing to do. It may be easy if you were blessed with all these things that make it easy for your standard of love. But the point being is, regardless of where we're at, we have to start there. As if we don't start there, it's just some superficial version of what love is.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man.
So tell me, not to keep provoking you, but what is it in yourself? What are the tangible things that you've implemented into quieting the noise of the need to go horse trade some love in your environments every day, whether it's in the marriage or with coworkers or family? Like, what allows you to stop horse trading your love? What tools have you utilized and are utilizing to quiet the noise of the need to be accepted by external sources, instead of getting quiet enough to learn how to accept yourself? Like, what helped you bridge that gap?
Oof. That's a good question. uh, I can read you something,
Fuck yeah.
but I think to answer your question, a big part of it was learning to understand what lust was.
Yeah.
Because when we think of lust, we think of, a sexual thing. You're lusting after somebody, but lust is so much bigger than that.
Massive.
And so, in learning to love, I feel like I had to understand lust in the sense of that's where I felt stuck. So I'll read you something I wrote on
I can't wait.
lust, and you could tell me what you
Listen
think.
up, people.
So I said, when I used to think of lust, I thought of lusting after someone in a sexual way, but lust is not limited to this realm. Lust is devious. It's a moving target that ducks and dodges. It has a way of hiding itself, so you don't even realize you're in a battle with it. For 10 years of my life, this was the case. Lust is a spiritual disease that permeates into all areas of your life. You find yourself focusing on the symptoms like anger, sadness, depression, insecurity, and missing out on the real target. With lust present, it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. Once you smash one problem down, another one just pops right up. Here's the plain and simple definition of lust. Lust is nothing more than an attitude demanding that natural instincts serve unnatural purposes. So if you take a second and think about that.
Yeah, read it again.
So lust is nothing more than an attitude demanding that natural instincts serve unnatural purposes. Lust being nothing more than an attitude, a way of thinking that is harmful for us in our growth. With lust, we need to know what we are fighting if we're ever going to heal, because lust has this horrible effect of killing love. Lust is the grand enemy of love. It is the Trojan horse that sneaks its way in. Soon we will have a hard time distinguishing the difference between lust and love, because for the person trapped in lust, love is just a feeling of deep affection. Lust is a feeling of deep affection as well, but it's a manipulative one. Love isn't manipulating or selfish, it's understanding and selfless. Lust kills love because it makes everything about us. The attitude-fueled disease prevents us from the real connection and understanding because we cannot get out of our own way. Lust needs to be seen for what it is, a love killer. It will deceive and disconnect us as long as it stays lurking in the background. Knowing if it is present in our lives is the first step towards healing. We need love in our lives, and knowing its grand enemy is the key to moving forward. So I say that because it's kind of what we've been talking about, right? It's this, it's whatever lie we think's going to
So good.
bring it, right? What's gonna satisfy. But the point is we use all these unnatural things thinking they're going to, bring us whatever satisfaction we're after. But when we have this attitude-based disease like that, I mean, the definition of that comes from a support group. Because once you understand like what you're doing, then you can go back and like really learn what it's about. But we're all hooked into this thing because it's a part of why you think horse trading's ever going to work.
So I think the focus there is, I love the imagery you have, the Trojan horse. It's the what's really within the Trojan horse is death. It's a bunch of soldiers going to hop out and just murder your colony. And what we perceive at face value to satiate an organic appetite using inorganic means to temporarily satiate the appetite, you're going to get long-term ramifications. It's crazy, man. It's so crazy, because we talking about love, like you said, we need to be focused on how we deliver this message, because it's almost impossible to articulate what it is, because what we perceive love to be is 1,000,000% externally sourced. When we talk about love, everyone has conscious and subconscious triggers of it's all of these external things. And the very few hippies in the world are going internally to create that through traditional Eastern yoga practices. And then immediately all the people who you're trying to connect to say, how the fuck is stretching and being more limber and flexible going to connect the dots for my broken soul? Like, how the hell is that going to work? So it's so complex, man. It's hard to even say, well, how do you get that Trojan horse out of your life? How do you get that addictive cycle, that thing that's satiating an organic appetite inorganically? Mm-hmm. It's having the balls to, or again, other female genetic reproductive systems, whatever the fuck. It's starting at a place of asking why. Why did you allow this Trojan horse into your soul's city to destroy everything that had life? What is it that you're seeking? It's because at some point you have to stop the debate of, like you said, at some point if you have the fortunate ability to have discipline and steer away from an addictive appetite that's satiating inorganically your love's appetite, you're just trading it off. It's just going to be, you're going to quench your thirst somewhere else.
Yeah.
If you don't realize why you're thirsty for love, and you haven't found the well that you can draw from the true source of it, which is within, if you keep going out here to sip on things that are just basically salt water, it's going to make you more thirsty. Like, you're not getting any electrolytes. Like, you're dying out here with all the things you're trying to quench your thirst with. So for you, what answers did you get when you asked yourself, why am I having all these addictive behaviors? And what was it for you that provoked you to start going within, to start sipping on some self-love?
What provoked it, man? Well,
outside of exhausting all the other attempts at different things that became addictions, like what was it for you that clicked? That's like, maybe I need to learn how to love myself. Maybe it isn't my wife's job to love me and fix my brokenness. Maybe it isn't my friend's job to love me, to make me feel better about me. Maybe I'm in my wife's life, or maybe I'm in my friend's life to give them love. Maybe that's how I create love, is to give it. But how do I give it if I don't have it?
Well, I think that kind of gets into the last part of this.
Yeah.
I think a big part of learning to love is to understand how to be it, and how to find that flame inside you that never flickers, that place that is connectedness. So when you talk about yoga and places, I feel like, and how stretching and stuff, I feel like the deep part of connecting to like what a yogi's talking about is finding that place of interconnectedness, that place of I am the universe is me, and it sounds so hippie and blah blah blah, but it's getting to that place of, why do I believe that once I'm not doing my particular behavior, I'm going to be good? Or why do I believe once this person accepts me, I'm going to be able to love myself, or whatever it is, right? I think a big part of breaking free and finding that was asking, like, why do I believe it's going to take something outside of me to fix me? And I think what you said was really beautiful when you said that if you don't know what love is, and God is love, how are you how are you ever going to know God, right? Because when you think of what God is in a state, and a lot of, I guess, Eastern practices will talk about it like this, it's a state of consciousness, where like this, that's connecting to the universe in this way, right? Where it's this interconnectedness that we have, that I realize that there's two people sitting at this table, but on some plane that we aren't different. We're a part of the universe. We're patterns of energy sitting amongst other patterns of energy in this shop full of broken tools.
Yeah. Us being some of those tools that are broken.
Yeah. But I feel like a part of it is learning to see that what you're expecting to find is a journey inward, and a journey that involves understanding that I am who I am, and I will only ever find that love in here, into the sense where That's the gateway to connect to God and to the universe, or whatever you want to call it, in a sense that I can be conscious of who I am, who you are, why I do what I do, learn to understand the different facets of love, because I do think there's a distinction between love. I think that love is in action, but it's also a state where I can love you in the sense of love, in the sense of connecting to you, accepting you, understanding you, doing these things that show love. But there's a place of being love in the sense of, this is who I am. This is why when Jesus talks about God as love and being that way, it's a place you get to. It's like, if you've ever heard of Bob Goff and Love Does and Everybody Always, it is like, you are love. You are that. Because that's what, if you can have all that other BS go away, of the person who cares about looking good in the mirror, the person that values how smart they are, the person that thinks there's something that they're not. If you can let go, all that's there is that. That's what's there. We just pack it with the something that we have called the ego or whatever, you know. It depends on how deep you want to dive into it. But what love does is help disintegrate that. When you connect to it, it's gone, because that's all you can be. And this is getting really deep, it's right where it's supposed to be. But it's something that I feel like it's something in our world in the West over here we need to understand, because we're so focused on this act. We also forget the state. The state of it is this place where we can be and just be, and just be, and like it flows out of us. Like you're in it, you are it. It's coming out of you. That's the spiritual connectedness state of the ultimate place you want to get to. But it's hard, because in doing that you have to let go, and we're terrified to let go. You know, so I feel like, in answering your question, a big part of me finding that was learning how many of these lies that I just accept all the time, and like trying to go back to the beginning and go like, why do I believe that? Why do I believe that about myself? Why do I hold myself to this standard? Like, what's going on here? Like, why can't I accept, like, you know, if I'm talking about, like we've talked about before, if God's up there looking at me in the entirety of my life, loving me as I am, why can't I do that? Right? Because if there isn't, then there's something I'm believing that's keeping me from doing that. So it's going back to the drawing board. You know, when you're sitting there in those groups and you get to the start of trying to figure out your addiction, the starting point is, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to put my hands up like this and basically surrender. And in surrendering, you're admitting, you're waving the white flag. All right, I give up, man. I've tried. I can't do it. And in doing that, then it takes you back. You're learning everything over again. You're trying to understand, oh, shit. I wasn't loving. I was lusting. Oh, my God. I thought it was love. Man, that one got me by surprise. Whew. I really told myself that was what love was.
Yeah.
And then it comes full circle, and you're like, dude, this is anything but that. And I think that's the awakening moment, is when you just realize is one, how limited we are, how much we don't know, and in the sense of we are all doing the best we can trying to figure out what love is. We're taught so many different things, and we're buying into so many of these different things around us, when in reality we gotta go back and just be like, man, I really don't know. Yeah. And it's a scary thing to do. Yeah. So I think that answers your question.
Absolutely does. You know, you hit on many significant points, and I think, not to be redundant, but I think ultimately it comes down to recognizing that the amount of love you have in your life or not in your life is, I would say, those 10 people at the beginning of our conversation that we interviewed to ask what love is, I think 10 out of 10 people's issues with love and understanding what love is and how to manifest and create that, it stems from the constant cause and effect combustion reacting with people's identity, and self-love is always put in external relationships, responsibilities hands. No one understands that it is only our job to manifest and maintain and create self-love. The irony is from day one, we are taught that you need to become what people want you to be in order to gain the thing that you want. And we We have so many versions of who we are as we evolve through our childhood and adolescence, and we get married and we maintain the relationships, friendships that we do. And all of those people, we know subconsciously that they look at us in a specific way. They have specific expectations of what we're supposed to be for them. If we're the funny guy, if we're the dependable guy, if we're whatever it is, male, female, whatever it is, whatever role you have in whatever other people's life it is, you're held to that. There is a nonverbal contract of, I need you to be this for the family. I need you to be this for my friendship. Because I need to take from you. You're the version of love that you've established with me, and I need you to maintain that for me to value you. And what sucks is we feel the weight of that because we know when we're going to go be around this person or this atmosphere or this environment, there's going to be a subconscious expectation. You're going to have to be a lot of things and maintain that. And if you don't, then you're not going to receive the value from them. So life becomes this constant, exhausting, creating synthetic versions of yourself to take a commodity that is you knowingly getting a synthetic version of it and fueling your engine with diesel when you're an automatic. And you have to understand that there is a bottomless well, oil well of the purest fuel within all of us. Mm-hmm. You don't need to go to anyone's gas pump to take some fuel from them. Like they don't know what the fuck you need, only you do. But the only way you're going to find that out is if you love yourself enough to realize how to tap into that, how to drill into that well, into that soul. And you get in there. And yeah, it's fucking dark. And yeah, there's a lot of things that aren't pretty. But until you sit there and say, I am who I am for a lot of good reasons. And there's a lot of not pretty moments that have led to being who I am and what I see inside here. But until I have the courage to say, you know what, you did the best you could with the information that you have. And now that you're finally having the courage to be honest about sitting here and saying, the reason why I feel empty is because I haven't learned how to love myself. Until you have that epiphany moment, life will never, ever make sense, because every single thing that is chaotic in life can be rooted back to the fact that you haven't drilled into that well of needing to know how to love yourself and realize that it's not something you need to go get. You don't need to go earn X amount of money to be worthy to these people. You don't need to go on these vacations to be worthy to yourself. You don't need to wear these clothes and be at this cutting edge of whatever fashion statement is being established. You don't need any of that. Like, you need to know who you are and why you're worth being loved. So again, it's so complicated. It's so complicated because it is always subjective to the individual and their journey up until that point. So to talk about love, it has to be in a spiritual yogi-esque way, but it's not hippie shit. It's very simple shit. It's having the courage to sit quietly enough to ask yourself, why do you not want to love yourself? And realize that it's okay that you don't, but what's not okay is to continually go get something externally that is only internally found.
It made me think of when you were talking about that video you sent me.
Yeah.
It was great. I was trying to find her name. Eartha, what's her? I can't remember. She wrote that Santa Baby song. But I love what she said in the video that you sent. So there's this video. We could post it in our description. It's from Eartha. I can't remember her last name, but we'll put it on there. And basically what she was talking about in the video was compromising in love, in the sense that she wants somebody to love her and join in on the fact that that's it. That she's so in love with herself that she wants someone to share it with. I love that idea.
Yeah.
I mean, good Lord, can you imagine like being how much healthier our relationships would be? Like if I loved me so much and I met somebody who joined me in that same love, how much better our relationships would be, instead of like I'm loving you in order to get that love back. You know, it's completely like a ping pong game.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty, man. If you love yourself to the degree that, and it's a comical video because she's like laughing at the question, like, if a man comes into your life, in order to have love with this man established, what do you have to compromise of yourself? And she's literally laughing. And she's like, what the fuck do you mean? And then she takes it very seriously, and she's kind of pensive for a moment, and she's like, I want someone to come into my life to love me the way I love me and to celebrate that energy.
Yeah.
But what's so funny is a part of us cringes because you're like, that's like the most selfish, arrogant thing I've ever heard. But the real thing we're angry about is we're secretly fucking jealous that someone loves themselves that much.
Yeah.
But what's so beautiful is if you love yourself fully, you never play the ping pong game. There's no paddles. There's no ball. You just show up. There's no ping pong table in love. There's no exchanging of anything because each individual is whole. Mm-hmm. I don't need to take anything, so I'm going to give of myself.
Yeah.
And if you value that and you value yourself, there's going to be this purity exchanged and nothing's taken. Mm-hmm. You're just giving of, they're giving of, and there is just further life birthed.
Yep. Only
giving is in that place. So we're taught not to have that level of healthy selfishness. And that's why I've said in previous episodes, like it's you'll never be not selfish. So let's find out how to be the least selfish in a healthy way. It's the best worst thing. But is it worst to be self-loving to that degree? And I would argue that our world would be so beautiful if we stopped trying to take everything from everyone.
Yeah.
And stop putting up fucking walls to keep people away. You know what I mean? It's like break down the wall. How do we build bridges to further complete connections?
Yep.
And not build up these like barricades and say, you're only coming in if you love what you see, and you have to love it in order to be here. Like that's the toll you have to pay at the bridge to get into my soul. But if you just open your soul and you love it, it's gonna be peaceful because you don't need to take anything.
No, but that's it, dude. And it's giving. It's giving. Like I'm so in tune with me, and I'm so understanding of myself and accepting of myself. And like, I found this person who loves me that much too. Mm-hmm. So let's share this together, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. Man, mm-hmm. That is just so much more than what we're used to. Like, it's like our mode is like, oh man, look at that girl down the street. Mm-hmm. She looks pretty. Let's go talk to her. And then you meet her, and you're like, oh my gosh, she's like blowing my mind right now. Mm-hmm. She's provoking something in me that I want so badly. Why don't you have that in the first place?
Yeah.
Why does it take that person to do that?
Why do you have to go take the beauty instead of recognize you're beautiful and whole the way you are and go offer something to it? But that's what we're hunter-gatherers with love. We see something, we want to fucking destroy it, consume it, and move on to the next one. Yeah. So fucking ketogenic diet, that shit. Go find your prey, hunt it down, take it, kill it, the end. But guess what? Once you look at love in a way that is objective, it's objective driven, and it is as a thing to destroy and take and harvest, you'll always be in lack at some point. You'll always be in lack because yes, you'll satiate your appetite for a moment, but you're gonna have to go kill something else.
That's a great way to put it, because it's I guess that if we could get to that, that's how we find this more holistic version of what we're talking about, and get away from this idea of like, oh, this person provokes something in me I deeply want. Yeah. Instead, find that for yourself. Figure it out. Figure out what's causing you not to have that. Yeah.
In a very like Wim Hof-esque way, he's found out to physiologically, and he's a hero of mine, but I feel like I'm looking at the soul in the same way he's looking at the anatomy. It's like, how do we sit inside an ice bath of loneliness, in isolation that most of us do live in every moment, and that fucking freezing temperature of lovelessness. How does he knows how to tap into his physical, metaphysical powers and create heat and create a core body temperature in an ice bath to where the ice starts melting. Like he's scientifically broken so many things that we thought were impossible. Mm-hmm. It's because he knows how to tap into his psyche and a level of consciousness that realizes that I can run up Everest without oxygen in a fucking Speedo and be totally fine, because he knows how to create that level of self warmth. Mm-hmm. So how do we create into our souls that level of self-love to where we can be in any emotional environment, no matter how fucking cold it is, and find warmth? It's the same fucking thing.
But that's it, dude. And I think to wrap up this whole thing with that, it's that idea of what is keeping us from that. What is keeping us from that self-love? What is keeping us from this deeper definition of something that has been honestly perverted we've taken it and made it something that is so, it's the opposite of what we're talking about. You know, and the point is, like, how do you bring it back? How do you take love back from love? How do you get to this place that we're talking about, that you can live in this place of self-love?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it begins with, you know, admitting the fact that we don't really know it very well, and we need to reassess it.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see the importance of what we're talking about, because if we're caught up in some perverse version of what love is, we're going to be empty and broken and stay that way, because we're not connected to the lifeline that we need. And I think that's a big part of what we're talking about is really trying to understand how much we need it, to be free, to be whole, to be so much more loving and accepting of ourselves, that we can both enter into the state and trying to be in this state of love, and that we can figure out how to give and be it in a way that brings us together, and keeps us from, and that brings us together and keeps us from being selfish, self-focused, because we realize that in the end it leads us nowhere. Right?
It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful.
Well, do you have any artwork or anything?
Oh, yeah. So this is painfully ironic. The one
I couldn't remember if you brought it, but the picture's awesome.
The one we did this week is pretty fucking depressing. That's fitting though. So it's the lactose intolerant astronaut up on whatever fucking star moon he's on, and in the Milky Way, trying to find love, and just having that acknowledgement and recognition that, you know, he's having a conversation with himself in some moon puddle, and saying all the humans are starving for love. Where is it being hidden in the universe? And that subconscious self is saying back, being like, hey, slugger, how could you know, even if you found it, when you don't even know how to love yourself? So, and I think that came from like a really subconscious truth in myself of how is love attained if I don't know how to love myself? And even if I found love, would I know what it is? Because I don't yet know how to fully create it within myself. But I think that's where you start. You have that conversation in the mirror like he is on the moon, just saying, if we're going to find out where love is, we got to look within ourselves to start creating it, because it's not out here. It's not external. It's within.
Dude, awesome. I love that side of you. And I mean that. And Jordan, thanks again, dude, for being so vulnerable to a place where I hope that people can watch what you did today and really appreciate it, and not just appreciate it, but have it be something where it's like, dude, I wish I could do something like that.
You can. You know, you got to first put yourself in an environment by yourself to start exposing what those, God made me very exhaustively right-brained, artistically, abstractly wired. And I've learned that if I'm going to love myself, I have to express myself artistically. And I started quietly in my room. You know, I've written poetry my whole life, and I've drawn and colored my whole life, and never paid attention in class. So it's how I get to know myself. It's how I express myself, is artistically and through words. And having a platform to be here with you and express myself through words, I'm not fully owning who I am unless I have the courage to express who I am in the quiet moments by myself in my room, you know, out here. So it's finding people you can trust enough to start having the courage to expose who you are. And it's actually a foolproof way of seeing who loves you by starting to own who you are. And you'll know quickly whether or not someone's in your life to take something or to be there to give.
There you go.
So,
well, it was beautiful, dude.
I appreciate it, bro.
So anyway, we will be back again next week with a mystery topic. We'll figure it out. All right. Well, later.